Hello, everybody. I have a treat for y'all today. This is our Pontification with a Pro series as part of my Patreon page. And we're here with Connie Jones. And Connie and I met through a networking organization and we just hit it off. I mean, our personalities are just very similar. She's very heart-centered. She has a love for college students and family and faculty and staff. So everybody who is a patron here, then she has something to offer you. And so I'm going to dig in a little bit with her professionally, but also ask a little bit about her personal trajectory as well. So, but we're going to start with who she is professionally. So Connie, if you would introduce yourself to our audience and then just tell us a little bit about how you serve college students, perhaps folks after college. What does that look like? What are you seeing? And just kind of dive right in.
Yeah, well, in several capacities, we serve that different populations. And hey, everybody, thank you for having me, Dr. Roz. You are not
Absolutely.
hard. You are so easy to connect with, and just a joy. And I know you guys already are seeing that. So, and you get to experience that so often already. So, but I'm Connie Jones, and my office, my practice, I have a counseling and a coaching practice that I founded. It's in Peachtree City, Georgia, but because I'm also a coach, I do work nationwide. And so I have clients all over the nation, and as do some of our other coaches in our office. And so we do a combination of every kind of counseling that you can imagine. There are 5 of us in practice. It's called Arise Counseling and Coaching is the practice name. And like I said, but between the 5 of us, we do pretty much anything and everything. They're more centered on counseling still and some life coaching. I primarily at this point am working. I still do some life coaching. I have a life coaching course, and we'll take on some life coaching clients. But my primary work is with business owners at this point, and so I work with business owners in a business breakthrough coaching course and one-on-one coaching also. But I still love. I've had years of experience with that college age, and when the right fit comes along, I still love working with them. Still love helping people really discover their essence, and understand what their strengths and their gifts are, and what lights them on fire, and what they feel like that the impact that they want to make in the world. And so we pull all of those pieces and their values, the values that are most important to them and how they want to be living their life and showing up in the world. And so we pull all those pieces together and help them really create what it is that they want to become. And sometimes education is a piece of that. Most of the time, they're either in school or they are, thinking about whether I should go back to school or should I get more education, or should I change and go get a different kind of education. And I've actually got one right now that I've been working with for a couple of years. Just love her. Just great girl in her 20s, got her nursing degree. Just knows that there's more, trying to figure out, how do I fit in the world? What do I want to do in my true essence? Is it really nursing? And do I really want to go back to school, but I don't want to spend the money? It's always that. And what really matters to me, because it's so hard making decisions at 18 or 19 or 20 about what we want to do with the rest of our lives. I didn't know till I was 32, and so, and that's the thing, is that we can open to the possibilities, and there are always more possibilities. And so it's discovering your answers are inside of you. And I just help people tap into those answers that are already in them, and unlock them, and then become their best self. And then we work through any habits and mindsets and patterns of behavior that they have learned to survive and succeed up to a certain point. But at this point, they're not allowing them to thrive, and something isn't working, and they need to change something. So, and that isn't just college kids that are college students. That's people who are going through transition in life, who are going from a career to a calling, or wanting to move from a career to a calling. They're people who may have been divorced and or their kids are, they're empty nesters and going back into the workforce, or
Mhm.
a number of things. So we see pretty much everything at our office.
Wow.
And that's mainly the under the life coaching hat per se. And
Yeah. Yeah.
rewarding work,
Yeah.
such rewarding work.
I wrote down some of those notes that you were saying, and I was like, what great hashtags. I mean,
Yeah.
uncover and discover,
Yeah.
it's all inside of you. And then career to a calling. I
Yeah.
mean, I went, this was in my late 40s. I went from somebody's employee for 30 plus years to an entrepreneur. And
Yeah.
so that's so interesting that you talk about that. What would you say, you or like the folks in your practice, when you are talking to specifically either students heading to college, college students, recent college graduates, what mindset shifts are you seeing most, or what would be a critical mindset shift that you see frequently that my students could benefit from?
Well, let's see. Gosh, there's so many. We've got one that really comes to mind is that, I have to do what I'm expected to do. And this is the
That's so
route
good.
that,
It's really
yeah,
good.
this is the route that makes sense. This is what my education is in. I just kind of have to, grit my teeth, bear down, and make it happen. And what I say to them is, it's the rest of your life. You need to be passionate about what you're doing, or find your passion in what you're doing, or on the side of what you're doing, and get clear about your big why that is going to
Mhm.
move you every day, and not just drive you to success, but fuel that passion and that purpose inside. And that's the place that we need to be coming from every day. And so, and that looks so different for everybody. And it's just finding it, like I said, in yourself. Another one is, well, this just makes sense. Or, a lot of times we just talk ourselves out of the dream in our
Mhm.
heart too, and what we can have, and it's going to be too hard, and I could never do that, or, that's just not possible for me. It's not going to happen. All of
Mhm.
those things that we're just great. We are great at talking ourselves out of the potential and the possibilities. And, we just don't realize really how powerful we are, and how powerful create how what powerful creators we are in our own
Right.
lives. And
Right.
we don't know how to tap into that,
Right.
or for the
Right.
most part. So I love
Right.
helping people do that.
Right, right. And imagine, like
Yeah.
you said, you were 32. I had a wonderful, phenomenal career in higher ed. I loved higher ed. So I took early retirement to do something different, but it wasn't. It was just time, but it wasn't like I was burned out and didn't like it or whatever. But you know,
Yeah.
we I think this generation coming up behind, well, you're a generation behind me, so generations past you. I think this generation, they're not looking to, go into something for 30 plus years or something like that. And so
No.
to
Yeah.
know at 18, 20, 24, or however it is when folks are working with you, to find that spark, to find that passion, because it is so important. So I do talk about debt-free degree and making sure that you're forging that path, but I do not want my students to do that at the expense of their dreams. And so
That's right.
that's so critical, Connie. That's really, really critical. Well, I
Yeah.
know, I also really want you to share just a little bit of
Yeah.
your trajectory. And if you wouldn't mind, sharing about, perhaps your role, I guess your path with graduating with debt, and then
Mhm.
how long it took to pay it off, and whatever it is you're comfortable with sharing that, because I really want students to here's a real life example of someone who is so incredibly successful
Mhm.
financially, spiritually, physically, emotionally, professionally, intellectually, and all the way.
Oh, well, thank you.
And
Thank you.
yet there was a thing that if you could have done it differently, you would have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you'll
Uh,
share
I
your
I
story.
wish I had known about your program many years ago. Yeah, so well, I haven't even told you my whole story, and I'll be as brief as possible. But okay, so when I was the I was a really good student and a really good athlete in high school, and so when I went to college, I went to Furman University, and I had a full scholarship, part academic, part athletic,
Wow.
because they didn't give women at the time, they didn't
Mhm.
get in the minor sports. I was a softball player, so they didn't give full scholarships. So the school gave me half, and the
Wow.
athletic department gave me half. So I was fully covered.
Outstanding.
Plus plus I had an ROTC scholarship. So I was actually
Wow.
when I went my freshman year in college, I actually I was getting paid $3,000 a month to be in school. I I had it so good.
Wow.
What happened was I was that high
Wow.
achiever that, I had done everything like I was supposed to, and kind of shut down my heart and didn't know who I was, and was
Oh.
just I was performing, and I developed an eating disorder and debilitating anxiety and depression
Mm.
from that, because it was like all my edges were cracking, because it was like I was in this, I'd come from a small community where I was the big fish in the little sea, and and my family was in the spotlight all the time, and all of a sudden I went to this, the next level of this university that was a great academic school. I was a freshman, I had always been a starter, had never come off the field,
Mm.
and all of a sudden I had to prove myself all over again, and I was just exhausted.
Yeah.
And so I was just tired of doing that, and didn't know all that at the time. I just thought the world was crashing around me. And so I ended up really having, I kind of cracked and
Mm.
had to go to treatment. And that was very, very, very expensive, because boy,
Yeah.
I don't do anything halfway. I needed I had a really
Mhm.
bad eating disorder. And so I really had to go into a really good treatment center, because I had tried everything outpatient, and, my parents had put a lot of money into that. And
Mhm.
so, and they were teachers, and, you know,
Oh.
and so we just didn't have, it's what we had to do. Well, when I did that, I was out of school, of course, and had to leave school, and I lost all my scholarships. And so,
Oh.
yeah. And so when I came back, I wouldn't take anything for it today. I mean, I know why it happened. I know, how I grew
Mhm.
from it. It made me who I am. I get
Mhm.
it all now. But when I came back, I tried to go back to school, but it was just so expensive, and I took out loans for a little bit. That's when it started. And, from in my family, I mean, that's just what we didn't know anything else. That's just what we did. I did have a
Mhm.
part-time job,
Mhm.
but I didn't know what else to do. And
So, Connie, when you went to treatment, you lost your academic scholarship, your athletic scholarship, and your ROTC scholarship.
absolutely,
And
yeah. Because I had to take medical leave for the ROTC. I had to, like, get a medical dismissal or whatever for ROTC,
wow.
and I lost both
Mm.
scholarships, yeah.
Wow.
And so when I went back, I got loans for a semester, but I was still really struggling. I wasn't ready to go back to school, so I ended up taking a year off, and I went home and
Mm.
got in a residential, I don't know, a partial, treatment program, just to kinda get me through. And over that next year, I stayed home and really got healthy and was thriving and doing so
Yeah.
well. Well, then I didn't wanna go back to the same place where I had struggled so much, and
Right.
so I transferred to Georgia. Well, I didn't know what else to do other than get loans, and so
Mhm.
that's my parents didn't know anything different either, and
Mhm.
that's what we did. And because they had already, I mean, it's embarrassing, but I mean, they had taken out a second mortgage on our home to pay
Oh,
for all that treatment for all that time,
yeah.
for 2 years.
Right.
Then, it was kind of up to me to figure it out with the loans. And so then from there on, to make a long story short, I when I transferred from a liberal arts school, which was Furman, to the University of Georgia, I lost 62 credits.
Oh,
And I
wow.
know, and so, and had to go
That is 2 full years.
right, had to go
Yeah.
extra. And then, because I had taken all the sciences as a non-science, I was great in science, but we had a track that was a my degree was considered, it's a long story. I won't even try to explain it. But anyway, so I had um the when I got to Georgia, they were offering all these great loans, and that's what I did. And so I just signed them away. And of course, I mean, I needed it to pay apartment, I needed it to pay
Right.
expenses, books. I mean, and so it was, um, I don't even know what the amount was by the time. And I was so I I was so unaware of finances, and
Mhm.
I just didn't get. I never had to worry about that. My job as a kid was to play in
Right.
sports
Right.
and perform academically, and my parents took care of everything. And so if I did that, then, everything was always taken care of, and I didn't know
Mhm.
anything different. And so this was a whole new
Mhm.
arena for me.
Mhm.
I had never had a job. I had never, I mean, I sound like a spoiled kid, and I wasn't. I was just, I was doing my job.
I was gonna
I
say,
was
you did have a job. I mean, you were
I was
you
I
were
was
you were engaged in
I
working
was
towards your degree.
I was making grades. I was doing,
Yes.
I was getting all the
Yeah.
awards. I was doing I was doing what I was supposed to do. And so, but anyway, life changed drastically, and that was a hard shift, coming out of, all I'd ever known was athletics and that world. And then all of a sudden I'm a student, and I'm getting loans, and I'm just kind of a nobody, and I'm older, and I'm, I was just a lot of transition. It was a tough time. But I finished, and then I went right and got my master's degree, because I didn't know what I wanted to do still, because I was still trying to kind of figure out who I am. And I went ahead and got my master's, thought I wanted to do one thing, then went out into the workforce, and I was in the fitness industry. I had an exercise and sports science degree,
Yeah,
and
totally makes sense.
but I was not making, at that time, I mean, the income that I was making was not enough to begin to
Mm.
even pay back. I left my master's degree, and 6 months after I finished school, I started having to pay $650 in school loans a month.
Wow.
And I didn't make that kind of money, and so I had to file for the, what is it, forbearance, or for the,
Okay.
whatever that. And so I did that for months, as long as I could, and it just kept accruing and accruing and accruing,
Right.
and finally started paying it back, and then realized at 29 that, my real calling is, in counseling and coaching, and really helping people transform their lives. And so I went back again and got a second master's degree, and took out more loans, just not knowing what I didn't know. I mean, it sounds idiotic at this point, thinking about what in the world was I thinking. But it's education. It's priceless. It's like,
Exactly,
of course you,
exactly, exactly.
not
That's
knowing.
exactly. And there's this bubble. We talk about social media algorithms, but
Right,
it's true face to face. It's true with our real people too. And
right,
if you're, surrounded by people that everybody has student loans, and you get
right.
these messages that everybody's got them, and you just,
And
take
that's
on the,
good debt. That's good debt.
yeah, yeah,
That's good debt.
and
And
yeah,
there is no good debt, and I realize that now, and so, yeah, I paid my student loans $137,000 until, say, I'm 48. I paid them
wow.
until a year ago.
Wow. Wow, 137,000. That
Yeah,
was that was that was the total amount you borrowed, or that's how much you paid off
that's the total amount I borrowed. Well, total amount I borrowed. No, how much I paid off in the end.
in the
Yes,
end?
with
Okay,
all
yeah,
the
yeah,
interest and all that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yep.
so you didn't borrow that much, but yeah. Wow. Wow.
Yep.
So it took you quite a long time.
A long time.
Decades.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Of 7, 800, $900,000 a month, as my income increased.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. So don't
Wow.
do it, you guys. I would have done any,
Wow.
and I think I said this to you at some point, and it's an important thing to think about, even if it sounds like, it sounds kind of daunting to hear you say, well, you can go to school full time, and you can work full time too. But, looking back, and as a kid, as a 20-year-old, I would have said, oh, I don't want to do that. That's too hard. I'll miss out on things. I don't want
Right.
to, but now Oh my gosh, I would have rather even if that was a little tiny bit of suffering, I would have rather suffered that little bit
Yes.
rather than
Yes.
suffered for all those years because there's
Right.
nothing worse. There's
Right.
nothing.
Right, right.
So,
Well, I frame it a little bit differently with my students. I talk about
yeah,
return on investment, and I
that's
talk
right.
about that there are sacrifices.
That's
So
right.
I don't really frame it as
Trade-offs.
suffering.
No, and I don't mean that. Yeah, no, I'm
But
totally kidding.
I
I meant if it's that little, if it feels a little bit like it,
yeah,
it is. It's a trade-off, and
yeah, it is.
I would want that trade-off any day.
It is. It is. And I worked 44 hours a week in my undergrad, and I did take $1,000 in loans for one summer quarter because that was what somebody said, this is what you need to do, and I did it and didn't even think
Yeah.
about it. But I was grateful that it was only $1,000. And I tell my students, if you work a 40-hour work week, that's 24% of your week.
Exactly.
So
It's
you've still
not
got
that much.
76%. And let me
Right.
tell you, I had a great time in college. I mean, I was in a sorority and
Yeah.
I did a lot of fun stuff, and and I also worked 20 hours a week in the psych department and then 2 12-hour shifts on the weekends. And
And
so
see, and looking back, I would have loved doing that because of, and I was totally teasing about the suffering part. I would have thought that as a kid. That
yeah,
was my
oh,
mindset. Now I'm like, that's an opportunity. And I'm not just saying this, like, I thinking back, there was so much wasted time in college that I could have been doing something productive and making connections and being
mhm,
a part of other communities in my job and in my, internships and things that I put in that I just didn't take advantage of. Like, and I wish I'd had those opportunities back to do them
yeah,
all over again and make a
mhm,
little money.
yeah,
You can't,
yeah,
it's just the way to go. It really
right,
is
right,
all the
right.
way around.
Well, I have kept you past the time that I told you,
Oh,
but
you're
you
fine.
are just such a delight. And
Oh,
is
thanks.
there any last little piece of wisdom that you want to share? Anything else you want to talk to my students about? I know you'll give me all your contact information, and that will be a part of
Yeah.
the notes, so they can reach out to you. But any last little words of wisdom, or
I
Connie?
would say that's funny. I would say 2 things. One is just listen to that little voice inside and listen to that trust that inner wisdom. We have experiences in our lives and get messages along the way that it's not safe to listen to our heart and to our intuition,
Mhm.
but that's really that's your seat of your wisdom. It's your power center and it's the most sacred place in you. And so listen to that and
Mhm.
tune in and trust yourself about what you need and what you want. And then don't sell yourself short. If that goal, if that dream's in your heart, if there's a will, there's a way. And trust that you may not see the possibility. You don't have to know the how yet, but if the why is big enough and that can overcome any fear or doubt if that why is
Mhm.
big enough. And so
Mhm.
trust that why inside and let that fuel you moving forward.
Wow. Trust
Yeah,
the why, even if you don't have the how.
that's right. The how will present itself when the why is big
Wow.
enough.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
profound. I wrote that down for
Yeah.
Elizabeth. So yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So, Connie, I had asked you to create that meme, about get over the overs.
Oh yeah.
And so if you create one of these, with your branding on it, then let me know and I want to share it because that's profound. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. You are amazing. You are a
Oh,
delight. You are a joy
thank
in this
you.
world. I really, really, really appreciate you just spending this time with me. And
Oh,
just thank you for all you do for the world. And thank you for what you did for my patrons. And so I
thank
appreciate
you.
you. And we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. That sounds great.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Absolutely. Bye.